This is the day I pay my consigners, and that means this is the day I look at what's sold on eBay, and we had some really cool things go last month. I want to show you because I think sharing this information is really helpful. It lets you know where the market is for certain things right now, and hopefully it gives people some hope about selling on eBay in the summer, because our sales were good. We sold most of the items that we listed, in fact all but one. We did have 2 cancellations, but we'll talk a little bit about what you can do about that, because we ended up being able to turn out just fine in the end in spite of that. I really felt good about this. There was this and one other item that sold this month because people had memories of their grandmother having this. The person who bought this said their grandma had this deck of cards from the 1939 World's Fair, and that they played with it all the time, and that when grandma was gone, somehow it got thrown out, someone else grabbed it. For whatever reason, they did not get this thing that was such a happy memory for them, and we were able to reunite them with that happy memory. So now they have the card deck. It's a really cool set too, because of course I love World's Fair. It's got this great foil cover with the Trilon and Parasphere, and then all these great cards with the World of Tomorrow printed on them. And it had everything, including the Joker, which is important. There was a period of time when it became collectible to have just the Jokers out of all the card decks, because they figured card decks are cheap and who cares, and I'll just collect the Jokers. Well, now everybody wants the card decks with the Jokers, and a lot of them are missing. So it went for $20, buy it now on the first bid. This video is made possible every month by our members, and the level 2 and level 3 members do get early access. And so that's the reason that sometimes if you're not a member and you go to look for something, it may have sold on Buy It Now, because they get a couple of days ahead of everybody else, because they give us the extra funding that makes this possible. So if you want to become a member, check the information below the dashed line in the description of any video. This sold to a viewer of ours who is a regular purchaser of interesting things, and I have to say I really agree with her. 100 stereo cards for $100, that's $1 a piece, and she got the whole world in her hands. These are from about 1920. These were by the Keystone View Company. I have several other volumes available. This is volume 1 and 2 in the original issue with the leather-looking book end, but actually you open it up and it's a box, and in that box are all of these great stereo cards and a couple of these interesting spirograph-looking things that are done to be so that you can line up your eyes and everything, because the way this works is through parallax. If you look at the images, they're almost identical, but the angle is just a little different, and then your eyes, when you put it in the viewer, do the trick where it adjusts accordingly. So I was very happy that she enjoyed this, and well, I have more available. This was another one that was a reuniting of a wonderful family memory with somebody whose grandparents had been gone for a while, and this was on the grandma's table. They had the tortoise and the hare. So many of these Valona star sets got broken up because they were themed rather than identical, and people didn't recognize that the turtle and the rabbit went together, and so it's hard to find the pair together, partly because the rabbit has the Valona star signature, but the turtle is too small to have the signature. So people don't realize, especially because the sizes and colors are different, that these are a match. And so a lot of them have been split up over the years. So I was so glad to be able to get this to somebody who had a happy childhood memory. A lot of people wanted them, and they went for $45 on 13 bids. This is one of the more expensive anthropomorphic salt and pepper shaker sets, and $45 is about what they run these days. This was a beautiful piece, and I'm so happy that this was something we could put out. This is a Fenton piece, and it was a little different than a lot of them. First of all, it has the veil-tailed, I think that's supposed to be some sort of a goldfish with the lily pads. I love the fact that it's represented as being underwater. This painter was the husband of a husband and wife team who worked for Fenton for many years. This would have been done late in his career, and it's not marked Fenton anywhere. And I think the reason for that is, as I show on one of the pictures, there you go, that little dot right here is a bit of a factory flaw. And I think because of that, Fenton didn't put their name on it. They didn't typically do a lot of factory seconds, but it was such a beautiful piece, they went ahead and let it be decorated. And I'm so glad because I knew it would be popular. It's a wonderful iridized carnival glass piece. Fenton, of course, was known for carnival originally back in the early 1900s. This is a later piece, probably from about 1990. And it went on 20 bids for $145. And I was just very happy to see that it was popular and a beautiful piece went to a collector who really loved it. This surprised me only because the person who bought it is a regular viewer and she's very sweet, and I never imagined that she had such a murderous streak in her, but she bought this Charlotte Marie Russell book. This was from my mother's collection. My mother had a number of mystery books. We'll be seeing more of them appearing over the next several months, I'm sure. This is one of the Crime Club editions, and this is from about 1940. A few people like this because it went on 9 bids for $51, which is exactly where the value should be according to avebooks.com for a book in this condition. You notice it has a few things going on. The spine is cracked. It's got the Midwest Library mark in it. But overall, a decent, intact reading copy with the dust jacket. And it is very important that it had the dust jacket. That makes a big difference in the value. So somebody is reading the death bell now. This is the one that didn't sell. I saw a whole bunch of these in a vendor mall and I bought 5 of them. I decided to put one of them online. This one had sold for the most money. But you know, sometimes with eBay, you don't know if something is sold because there's a couple of collectors looking for it right now. It was right before the 4th of July. Maybe they wanted it because it's a patriotic display or they were having some sort of a festive event for the 4th of July and they wanted presidential plates. For whatever reason, I didn't get any bids on this one. I really think they're nice pieces and they typically sell for $20 to $25, so we'll just put them out in the mall and I think they'll look beautiful until they sell. We'll get the right customer probably around Thanksgiving when dinnerware really sells again. This piece was interesting to learn about because this one is a tester and you can see that on the back here. Now, I did not realize with a tester, eBay is pretty particular. They do want a bunch of information, and a tester doesn't have that information. It's got to talk about what it's got in it and all of those sorts of things. So I had to actually copy a bunch of information that I was able to divine from a listing from one of these bottles that was not a tester. And then you notice the little gap between Tess and her. It's a lousy trick, but come on, eBay. It's the same exact thing that you're letting people sell all the time. And this is what people are doing as a workaround because they have no choice. So that's how we dealt with that. It sold right away on 1 bid at a buy it now price because it was priced well for what it was. This went for more than I expected. I had no expectations of this just because it's fun, but it was a bumper sticker. And how much is a bumper sticker worth? Well, I shot JR. That was a really momentous event. 83 million people watched the cliffhanger episode when they revealed that his mistress had shot him on the show Dallas back in 1980. And so a lot of people apparently remembered that because this went for $16.50 on 10 bids. This was a very nice thing to see sell. My friends who were very sweet and traded me something that they liked for this piece, I think I need to take them out to dinner because it went for a little bit more than any of us thought was possible. It certainly went for more than one in similar condition had sold for recently before. And so that's one thing about eBay, you just never know. You look at completed sales and you hope that you're going to get somewhere in the range. The one before that was in similar condition had sold for $150, but it didn't have as much paperwork. This one had all the paperwork. A fairly short-lived piece because this is a control line plane, and shortly after that they developed remote control. So this is near the last of its line from the mid-1960s. It's the RAF Kitty Hawk. I hope that they dig in the box. I listed it as missing the antenna, and then when I went through the box, the antenna had been broken, but it is in the box. So hopefully they will find it, and they can restore that, and they will have a complete plane. But these are hard enough to get that it went wild, a lot of bidding, and a price over $200 in the end. There's what it looks like in the original box, minus cellophane. The paperwork is all there, including the advertisement for the closed track racing Cox made a lot of different things with their Thimbledrome engines at the time, and they advertised them a lot. And I love how they actually used a cartoon to show you how to actually start their plane. They don't really tell you what to do if it crashes. If it crashes, well, you're pretty much getting a new plane. So the fact that this is still in existence is pretty good, and somebody is enjoying it now. These were fantastic. This picture makes it look like there's a tear at the top, which is unfortunate. It was just the way the picture had to be taken. This thing is 6 feet tall. They're really great. I had, I think, 9 or 10 of these, and I sold this one online. It went for $33 plus shipping. So roughly about $45 with the shipping in the tube. And I sold all the rest that I had at the Rose City Vintage Market after this listing came out. And I've got one left, and it's actually going to Laura Caldwell when I see her, because she asked for one with her zodiac sign on it, and I was able to find it and put it aside. So I just thought the graphics were so great, the colors were so good, and when I finally figured out how to display them at the show, I put them on pants hangers, I'd roll them out, and every time I hung one up, it sold. Jem and I went to our friend Les in Portland, and we just had a really good time with them. They were made in San Francisco in the late 60s. They were in pretty good shape overall. This one had just a few little creases and bumps on the edge, but we represented it fairly, and people realized how great they were, and it sold, even though it was hard to take a picture of. These very droll things also sold, and they sold for $43, which I think is good. This is from the early years of Droll Designs, which seems to be a group of studio pottery artists in Marblehead, Massachusetts, which actually is a venerated old place in pottery because there were various companies in Marblehead that were famous for their wares. There are still Droll Designs being made. This particular pair has been out of production for a while, which is why I figured they were legit to sell. And yes, they're anthropomorphic, but and a little bit literal, but nothing particularly overly obvious and risque about them. And you can turn them to the back if you have your minister coming over. There's the signature on the bottom. I thought they were just really neat, and so did a bunch of people. There were 16 bids. This next grouping got 5 bids and sold for $22.35, and I was so happy because it was a fun grouping of things from the New York World's Fair of 1964 and 65, the second New York World's Fair. And the woman that you see there in the car and in the photo is one of the assistants to the press corps liaison or something like that, and she got to be in the pictures and present one of those really fun Ford Motor Company radios shaped like a Thunderbird, you can see there, to this fellow who came from Kentucky. He was the first one in on Kentucky Day, so it went to him. And she also included a bunch of correspondence that she sent to her family about all the fun things that she did. So Billy, Grandma, and Grandpa got a whole earful about everything from boyfriends that she met, and there appeared to be a few, to what she was doing on her birthday with her friends in New York. And it sounded like she just had a really great time. What a fun experience it must have been to work at a World's Fair. And so somebody enjoyed this particular unique grouping of things as much as I did, and it sold for $22.35, which is good. I didn't pay a lot for this. This came at an estate sale in Seattle, and you will find interesting things in estate sales, ephemeral things that are just shoved in piles of old paper, and you can get them for 50 cents or $1 in many cases. So pays to look through the old paper. This book really surprised me. I knew that a couple of the books from my mother's collection were valuable. I did not realize that this edition of Little Lulu and Her Pals was as expensive as it would be. It went for $203 on 10 bids, and it's a wonderful book, and it's an early edition, and I guess that's the reason that it was better than I thought. It had the dust jacket, although not in great shape, but the fact that it existed also helped. Lulu was a lot of fun. She didn't really like taking her bath, apparently, which is too bad because she must have smelled kind of fishy after this. Yes, little Lulu was supposed to be a little bit of a, not a terror, but mischievous, we'll say. And Marge, who created her, decided on a girl because she said if it's a boy, it's going to seem a little too naughty. But if it's a girl doing it, people will give it a pass. And until Marge was able to retire and ended up being replaced by another draw artist who decided to add words to Little Lulu didn't speak at all. And this is an early book from that time. So I think that people recognized it as being even better than I did, and they bid it up accordingly. And this is part of the reason I like doing eBay auctions. I know a lot of people are afraid of the auctions. They want to set a fixed price. If I had set a fixed price based on what I thought this book was, I would have gotten $100 less because I didn't understand which edition I had, and there can be real subtleties between editions. So this is part of the reason that sometimes it's better to let the market tell you. This is the other book. This one I knew was a valuable book. I figured it could sell between 125 and 150, and it landed at 133.50. It's just the most darling book. The cats are flying in a zeppelin. The cover was in pretty good shape. This one was not made with a dust jacket because it was a picture cover, but look how cute those animals are and all the things they're doing. It was a controversial book when it came out because they were certain that he could not possibly have posed live animals in this way. But he did, and he didn't torture them, and he makes a big point in the book of talking about how he managed to do this and worked very patiently with the animals for over a year getting these pictures together so that he could create this book, The Little Folks of Animal Land. And it is just cute as can be, and it is sold. Good morning. That looks like me in the morning. I was warned by somebody when I listed this that I was going to have potential problems and that might even be delisted. And I said, well, why would you think that? And they said, well, because you're referring to a Navajo boy as Chico, and that's a Spanish name, and it's the super chief, and that's cultural appropriation. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense to me. The train was called the Super Chief, and the Santa Fe Railroad's Navajo boy was called Chico. It's just a fact. That's how it was in the 1950s. Well, thankfully, a railroad collector enjoyed this, understood what they were getting, understood all of those things behind it. It only went for $14.37. I think it's a better piece than the price, but this was a very difficult thing to take a picture of because it's clear with the smoky edge and then a reflective area with this silver map on it. It's a really neat piece and it's rather large, but I think it just doesn't look that impressive in pictures. And I used my professional light box and everything and did everything I could. So, you know what? It did not cost me a bunch of money, and it went to a collector who really enjoyed it. And so I was happy that it sold, and they bought another piece as well, so we were able to combine shipping, which is always nice. And the other piece they bought was this Florenza opal and rhinestone choker. And this actually went for $42, which is right in the ballpark of what I would expect a nice Florenza piece to sell for. Opals were very popular in the 1970s, and these are not high-grade opals. There's the Florenza mark on the back. Florenza was very well made, and it sounds Italian, but it was actually named after Florence, who was the mother of the founder. You can see that the opal stones they're pretty weak as opals go, but the fact that they used a natural stone really is the big attraction. And they're just so nicely encrusted. It is a very good look that tends to sell very well. Florenza is always a name worth getting, and they did a lot of dresser accessories too. So if you're not strictly a jewelry person, but you like flash and rhinestones, Florenza made a lot of things that went on dressers rather than just on the person wearing the jewelry. The skateboard, it was hard to get a good picture of this because it was so big in my light box, it just barely fit in there. So I was a little concerned that this might not do well either. Pictures really do tell 1,000 words on eBay. So I tried to show the trucks, and I tried to show the underside, and I tried to give a lot of angles so people would see what they were really getting. And it seems to have worked because it went for $61 on 14 bids, and that is about the price range I would have expected. It's from the mid-60s. This is called the surfari because this is when skateboards are really just starting to develop as a commercial product. And the idea is that it is something that you can do if you can't go surfing. The surf isn't up, or you live in Kentucky where this came from and there is no surf. Well, you can surf on the street. And that is the origin of the skateboard industry that has become such a huge billion-dollar plus business, with people who are professionals and do amazing tricks, and it's on television, and it's a legitimate sport of its own now. But it all came as something to do on a day when the surf wasn't good. Then there's the things that sold that eBay didn't make the people paid for. And it happened twice again. And instead of getting mad, I decided to get even, because it turns out that eBay does have some things you can do. First of all, you can block the person from ever bidding again, which if you don't pay for your item that you were the high bidder on, you're out. I'm not doing business with you in the future. Sorry to be so harsh, but if you can't even at least send me a message saying, I'm sorry, my house fell apart and I had to use the money on that, or I was out of town and I forgot to pay and eBay canceled on me, communicate. Because otherwise I will communicate back and say, please do not ever bid on my auctions again. And that's what I did with the person who did not pay for this piece, who had very low feedback. And eBay, if you do a buy it now, you can say they have to pay immediately. But if you do it on an auction and it's not a buy it now, eBay doesn't give you that option. I don't really understand that, eBay, because you're losing sales too. On the other hand, this went for a lot less than it should have. It only went for $10.50 on 2 bids. So to be truthful, I was happy it didn't get paid for, because I will take it and sell it for a better price somewhere else. And the other one that sold and didn't get paid for was this, and I was kind of shocked because it sold to somebody who had thousands of feedback and never made an attempt to get a hold of me. I was really stunned. It actually made me wonder if something happened to them, because it seemed very out of character, but I never heard a word. And so I would have been very disappointed, except the other thing that eBay will let you do is go for a second chance offer. And so I offered it to the person who had offered almost as much as this, and that turned out to be Mike from Well Swung. And he's here on YouTube. He collects Jack in the Pulpit vases. He was very thrilled to get it for the price that he had wanted to pay. And I was happy because I didn't lose a lot of money and I made the sale anyway. So that is the other option you have. It's a beautiful Stuart Abelman Jack in the Pulpit vase, and he sent me a picture of his window, and he has a collection of 25 or 30 of these, and this one is going to be a beautiful addition in a different color than he had. So he was happy, I was happy, and everything worked out in the end. So there are some options for you if people cancel on you. Well, you still might just make the sale and everyone goes home happy. But the person who didn't pay, they are blocked from doing business with me on eBay now because of it. And if they ever actually make an effort to contact me, well, we'll talk about it. But I'm just not putting up with that anymore, because it's happening way too often. I would say once a month for the past 4 or 5 months, I have had a piece that went for a big price and the person welched on the deal after making the bid. I just thought, yeah, this is not right. Don't bid on things if you don't intend to pay. But all in all, I have to say, for a July auction run, I felt like everything went really well overall. eBay is still a good place to sell. It's easy to say, oh, the market's bad because my little window of it is this. I think you got to look at what you're doing and say, is it because of the season? Is it because of the market? Is it because I put 700 listings on, sold the 200 or 300 that were really cool, and now I've got 500 ordinary things sitting there at the same price as everyone else? Sometimes it has more to do with what we're doing than with the market overall. And that's part of the reason I like to do these what sold videos, because I want you all to see that there is a customer, there is a market, and where is that market right now? And I would say, from what I'm seeing at shows and what I'm seeing online, that there is still an active collector customer who really wants neat things, and if you can price them right and promote them right, you have a good chance of doing well in this business. I know people who have been doing eBay since the 1990s, and they make a living at it, and things go up and things go down, and they still keep doing it, and they do just fine. And if you're a collector and your eBay involvement is as a buyer, summer can be a time for bargains. Follow me too, because we'll have another flight of things going on eBay very soon. And if you're a level 2 or 3 member, look for a notice coming to you in the community tab.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.